The following production is brought to you by the Talkin' Buds Leaf Show.
Here we go. Talkin' Buds Leaf Show, episode 264. Ryan, I think we're going to keep the weekly rewind thing going, where we sort of look back on the week that was, especially while we're on the one episode a week schedule. We're just talking before we hit record here. I think we're going to be on the once a week schedule till probably, if they go off a cliff and we have to do emergency episodes, that's what we'll do. But right now, we're cruising along. The team's cruising along. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's
Sunday
just stay
Leaf
at
Show.
one a week. Sunday Leaf Show. Let's just stay at one a week. And then as we get closer to the playoffs, we'll maybe ramp that up. And then as we get into the playoffs, we'll do our usual post-game shows. Since we last convened, the Maple Leafs had a win on Monday night over the Tampa Bay Lightning in a game that many people thought, a 5-3 win, I should say, in a game that many people thought was one of their better games of the season. Complete game. You and I both said coming out of that the Tampa Bay Lightning are not the same team that they once were, the team that went to the 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. Then on Wednesday, a 5-1 loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think consensus on that one was they didn't play terribly. Dennis Hildeby had a tough night. Subsequently, he's been sent back down to the Marlies, and Matt Murray is now backing up Joseph Woll. And then Saturday night, they lose a frustrating game, 2-1 to the Ottawa Senators. How do you feel about the week that was?
Well, I thought Monday they were great, and that's 3-0 against Tampa this season. And in all 3 games, they've looked in control. They've looked dominant. It looks like Tampa is just not deep enough to compete against them. Vasilevsky is played terribly against them, and he didn't even play on Monday. And again, they had
Which was a weird decision. Weird decision by John.
Yeah,
Cooper.
but I heard somebody saying that if you look at Vasilevsky's numbers, he just hasn't played well against the Leafs at all. And I don't know what his workload has been like. I haven't been keeping track of the amount of games he's been playing, but I don't know. It seems like for a long time they couldn't find success against that team. But if you look at the playoff picture right now, that's who they'd be playing in the first round if it starts tomorrow. And based off how they play them in the regular season, based off already beating the only team they've beaten in the playoffs in this era, that would be probably your ideal matchup going into round one. Them or just maybe playing a random Metro team just for something different. That probably be the best scenario for them.
I'll move over and talk about the Saturday night game against Ottawa. The Sens are a team that's kind of flirting with that potential playoff spot that the Leafs might match up with. This isn't the first time I've said this on this podcast. I'm going to reiterate. I'm fucking terrified of a potential first round series against the Ottawa Senators. I don't know what it is, but the Leafs, this version of the Toronto Maple Leafs just does not match up well against the Ottawa Senators. And a lot of me thinks it simply boils down to, I think the Sens really get up to play them, and it's a huge game for them. And I think, Craig Berube going into Saturday night talked about emotional investment. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's Ottawa. I don't know what it is. These star players just do not seem to want to be invested when it comes to playing the Ottawa Senators. Like, Bobby McMahon scores on the first or second shift of the game, playing up with Matthews and Marner, and then they were quiet for the rest of the night. They literally disappeared for the rest of the night. Matthews had like 1 shot, something like that. Marner trying all night to force things that weren't there. And for whatever reason, man, we just talked about Tampa, and they've just got it in their head. There's something about Tampa. Tampa brings the best out of them. I don't know if it's the history. I don't know if it's the style that Tampa plays. Whatever it is. The other side of that coin is the Ottawa Senators, and the Ottawa Senators just know how to stymie and frustrate and neutralize this Leaf team.
Yeah, I know Travis Green has just taken over this season. It's kind of changed the way they play, and this goes back before Travis Green even got here, but from watching them last night, from a team that had a reputation of being terrible defensively, I thought they played as well defensively against the Leafs I've seen a team play, in terms of just always being on top of the guy with the puck in their own D zone, just sticks and lanes all night, not letting classic playing the Toronto Maple Leafs playbook, clog up the middle, don't let anything go to your net, don't give up grade A chances, because all night they were trying to make a pass that wasn't there, trying to thread the needle across the ice. There was a stick in the lane. The Leafs, I don't even know how they ended up with 27 shots or whatever they ended up with, because I don't remember, other than McMahon's goal, I don't remember them getting a clean look all night. And it's just something about the personnel of the Senators. They do play with a kind of an edge, and I think,
Ryan, honestly, I don't think we as a fan base need to overthink it. I think it is simply this Senators team just gets up to play them, and that matchup brings out the best in their guys.
I mean, you look at the Ottawa Senators, they're one of the worst teams in the league at scoring goals, but Travis Green has completely turned their defensive game around. And I guess going into a playoff series against them, the positives would be, when you're in their building, it's basically a home game. Their goaltending, even though Allmark can't stay healthy, and their goaltending isn't exactly the best, and they can't score a lot of goals. But I don't know, for some reason, just the speed, the personnel, they can't seem to find a rhythm against this team. And I totally agree with you. It reeks of the Habs series to me if they go in and play the Sens. It just reeks of that kind of air of disappointment that's going to be coming our way, that they're going to get dusted by the Sens in 7 games in a playoff series. So yeah, they can't. It's a team they can't beat. They're really struggling against them. And I mean, they got one more matchup against them this season. They only play them 3 times this year. So I don't know. I don't know what they got to do. They got to go back to they got to find a new game plan. But I mean, the Leafs might be trying to change systems, might be trying to play differently offensively, defensively, but we talk about it ad nauseum on this podcast whenever they lose to a team. When you have that playbook against them where it's just, don't let Mitch Marner have space in the ozone. Just be on top of them. Yeah. Let him try to make a little backhanded pass across the seam, because it just doesn't work. And it seems like Travis Green, has just drilled that into their head this season, and they can't get any offense against them.
No, and they don't. I was thinking about this when I was watching the game, about as you said, they're on top of Marner and they're not letting him create. And the star players, I'm going to actually, you know what? Matthews and Marner specifically, if you frustrate them, they don't adjust. So there's no time and space in the ozone. You need to make a mental adjustment in that scenario. Start firing pucks on net. Go and bang in a greasy one. Make it ramp up the pressure forechecking. Ramp up the offensive battles. Just be harder. And that's kind of not who these guys are. If anything, if you're on top of Marner and you're checking him and you're frustrating him, he bears down more, in the sense that he tries even harder to feather a cross ice pass. He doesn't make adjustments. He doesn't take what the defense is giving him. And part of me is kind of it's so frustrating to watch. It's for God's sakes, man, it's not working. Try something new. But on the other hand, it's these are star players, and it's how they've always played, and it's how they've had success. And it's they don't know. Mitch Marner doesn't know how to play any other way. He just doesn't.
From my perspective, I actually thought Marner and Nylander were trying their absolute best to get their game going. Yes, they had to make an adjustment, but I actually thought they were trying to make an effort and trying to do what they normally do. I thought Austin Matthews was invisible. I don't know where he was all night. I don't know what he was doing. But yeah, it's just, and you have to, the lineup last night, the forward depth they were working with last night was pretty suspect. It was, they got a lot of guys down. And I know I say I don't make excuses for the star players. They're going to show up every single night, but there's some key guys missing in that lineup in a big game. And I don't know. They looked flat. They looked a little behind.
So this brings me to what my main take is on today's episode. I'm here to announce it, Ryan. Brad Treliving, do what you got to do, man. Like, you got to bring somebody in here, and you got to do something to make it happen. Like, if you look around, if you take the temperature of what's going on in the division and in the conference right now, the East is there for the taking. The Capitals are a good team, but the Leafs are right there behind them. And
I think they're gone. I think now you're just competing to win your division with Florida. I think the Capitals are gone.
Okay, either way. So fine then. Maybe take the conference out of the equation, but the division is there for the taking. And the thing that sticks out in my mind is more than any other year, you have the goaltending. If both of these guys can stay healthy, you have the goaltending to potentially take you on a run in the postseason. And to your point that you just made, having fucking Pontus Holmberg as your second line center just isn't going to cut it. And I know that JT's injured right now and he's had a great season and he'll eventually come back and that'll help things. But I think we know overall that it's just, even with JT in the lineup, you got to go. Basically what I'm trying to say is, if there is a year to push your chips in, I think this is the year. I think if you look, it's true though, but I think if you look around, like more than any other year, like I know everyone's LOL and classic Leaf fan, and here he goes, and this is the year. But honestly, like look at the division. In previous years, you were hanging on to that third seed in the Atlantic. You were going to play Boston or Tampa. It was a roll of the dice if you were going to win that series. Going into it, we didn't think they had a shot. And it's like now, Boston is not the same team. Tampa is not the same team. Florida, we'll wait till the playoffs because I think they're a team that can turn it on, but they've played a lot of hockey in the last couple of years. Like, this is the year that you have to, if you got to put Easton Cowan in the deal, do it. Like and I don't care if it's Ryan O'Reilly, Brock Nelson, Yanni Gord, Trent Frederick, I don't care who it is, Nazem Kadri, I don't care who it is. You need to go out and make the deal. Now, I want to caveat by saying we talked about this last week or the week before, whenever it was, and you and I are both in agreement. I'm not prepared to give up an Easton Cowan for a rental. But if you can get a guy with some term who's going to help you down the middle of the ice and push the Max Domis, the Pontus Holmbergs down a notch, you got to do it. You just have to. To me, you're wasting the goaltending performance that you're getting this year if you don't try and push your chips in the middle a little bit and say, we're going for it. We're going to try and win the Atlantic and get a favorable first round matchup, and try and go deeper than we've gone in this whole era.
Yeah. I mean, I'll even give a hot take to say that I think the center ice position is extremely important and obviously should be the number one priority. But I think if I was Brad Treliving, I would also be poking around on the defense market as well. Like I look at a game like last night, and wouldn't it just be nice to have a number one defenseman to just take the puck below their red line and have the skill and ability to skate it up the ice himself? That is also something else I would be interested in seeing them look at as well. I know they really need a centerman, but there's been a couple of games this season where it's like, I really like Chris Tanev. He's always so smart with the puck. He never puts it into pressure. He's a really great player, but he's also kind of limited in some areas. I like Jake McCabe, same thing.
Yeah, he's
Morgan Rielly is just not the same old Morgan Rielly he used to be. So even though they really need a center, I would also be poking around being like, who is the best defenseman available? Like if you look at what Brandon Montour did with the Florida Panthers and the edge he brought and the ability he brought, I think they're missing a player like that as well. So I would also be trying to poke around in that market.
So realistically, if you're going to bring in someone who's going to make an impact, it's only going to be one guy. So you're either going to go and try and get a defenseman that's going to be sort of impactful, and then you're going to get another forward that's a depth option that you're going to throw in, or you're going to get a forward that's going to be more impactful and a defenseman that's another depth option that you're going to throw into the mix. Which way would you go with that?
I think it's going to be easier to go get a more impactful centerman because every team in the league is looking for that defenseman. It's just there's not enough guys available like that, and there won't be. And if you look at that list that was put together of like the 10 dudes that they can go get, there's some pretty good names on that list for center ice position. So I think it's going to be a center iceman at the end of the day, just based off availability. And they also, I think equally, they need that guy. I mean, I'm the defense conversation I'm bringing up is like kind of unrealistic. Like to go and get a number, because I think they need a number one defenseman. Like they need a number 2 center, number 3 center. I think they need a number 1 defenseman, and I don't think that's possible. So, I mean, every year they always add that third pair guy that comes in, and we kind of like him, but at the end of the day, does he really make a massive difference? No. So I think the center market is deep enough that you can go out and get a pretty impactful guy. So I think that's the route they're going to go down.
And I also think, in terms of going and getting a center, like I just rattled off a bunch of names, which are all sort of consensus names if you look online. You're not looking for a superstar. You're looking for someone who can play 200-foot game and chip in offensively. You're looking for someone who's a better version of Max Domi. That's basically what you're looking for. A much better version of Max Domi.
You need a guy who can match up against good players and a guy who's not going to be the desert of offense that Pontus Holmberg is. Like I don't need a guy here scoring 30 plus a season, but if you can contribute like 15, 20 a year, 15, 20 a year, like that's kind of what you're looking for.
I just watched Joe Woll again in Ottawa. And another great performance. They're going to get Anthony Stolarz back in the next week or so here. I think he's going to need to take a game or two to get back up to speed. But again, playing at a Vezina caliber before he got hurt. If these two guys can stay healthy, you have the goaltending. You have the goaltending that can win you a series or two in the postseason. So now this shifts to, well, what's the biggest problem they've had that everyone always talks about? They can't score.
Yeah.
And so if you can add a forward up front that sort of puts everybody in the right place and sort of spreads the wealth and everyone's where they should be. Pontus Holmberg is not is not your second line centerman. David Kampf is not your third line centerman. Fraser Minton, God bless him, is in the American Hockey League. Like that is what's needed here. And if you gotta throw Easton Cowan in to make that happen, and you can get that player for at least next year, do it. I'm all in on it. I was kind of like, well, you don't want to move on from Cowan and blah blah. No, fuck that. I've completely changed my tune on this. Push those chips in, Brad.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, getting sucked into, we're in the middle of the season. We're starting to get sucked in. And the thing about the way they're playing right now is people are saying they're playing better defensively. And you have been texting me and saying on this podcast for weeks now that you don't like their defensive game.
No, I don't. They give up so many high danger chances.
And I think last night was a perfect example where everywhere I read, everywhere I look, it's like this was a tight game that was scored by a lucky, fluky goal. And I go, I didn't necessarily see it that way. I saw Joe Woll had to make tons of tough saves yesterday. Tons. Yes. I know the shots were even, but in terms of grade A dangerous chances, I thought it was way tipped to the Ottawa Senators' favor. I thought Forsberg had a somewhat easy night. I didn't really see him make any massive stops. There were some loose pucks, but the Leafs couldn't get to them. I thought Joe Woll made 5 really difficult saves last night. So yeah, it's just like that part is making me kind of nervous for them going forward. Is just and it's to your point, they finally have the goaltending to keep them in a game, but I think they need to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit to what they're trying to do defensively, because I agree. I think they're giving up way too many high danger chances, and even though the shots may look similar or they're finding a way to win games, they're going back to the old way of just giving up way too many good chances. And it's good to have goaltending, and this season more than ever you see a goaltending can make a difference, but you don't want to put that much pressure on your goaltender.
Well, look no further than Wednesday night against Columbus. Look what happens when you don't have top-tier goaltending. You lose 5-1. And Dennis Hildeby, again, God bless him, he's not ready. He belongs in the American Hockey League. I think if Stolarz is a week and a half to 2 weeks away, I think you just ride it out with Matt Murray, because now you're risking ruining Dennis Hildeby's development. Yeah. So just leave him down there. You're just going to have to gut it out with Matt Murray. But yeah, that's a perfect example. Like if you don't have Joe Woll or Stolarz in there making 10 Beller after 10 Beller, you lose 5-1.
And you go 0 for 3 on the power play. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And Berube after the game said he he thought they were pretty good defensively. I think he's not. I think we've learned now this far into the season he's not a guy that's going to publicly throw them under the bus. But there's no way that you're watching film back of that and happy with what you see. And I've been saying it for well over a month. I do not like their game defensively. I don't like it. There's way too many high danger chances, way too many instances where Joe Wall is stretching out to make a massive save to keep the game tied or to keep them within a goal or something like that.
Yeah, I
way
agree.
Too many times.
I think that I think he's had a lot of stress. Like, I think this has been a tough stretch for him. I think he's played well. I know his stats aren't like off the charts. They're not Connor Hellebuck, but for every single person tuning into the game every night, he might give up 3, but he's making really tough saves at really key times to keep them in the game, to giving them a chance. So you're right. I don't love the stress they're putting on their goaltender right now.
Playoffs? We're talking about playoffs? You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL.
Scoring touchdowns is the key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns.
Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick.
New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
I don't want to toot our own horn here, but you and I sometimes, I feel like we're ahead of things that when you listen to the media are like, we kind of get ahead of stuff. Like I'll turn on 590 or 1050 and I'll hear someone talking about something and I'll be like, listen, the Talking Buds Leaf Show was talking about this 3 weeks ago. And Morgan Rielly is one of those things. We've been talking about him for the last month and a half at least. And just now, he's become a topic of conversation in intermissions and that sort of thing. Is it really the Craig Berube system? I'm starting to see this with him now, that he's having a difficult time adjusting to the Berube system. And I'm sorry. I do not buy that. When you're a skilled, talented player like Morgan Rielly is, you sort of rise above whatever system you're playing. But I mean, the proof is in the pudding that he has been pretty terrible all season. And he's another guy that if you could potentially look to move him the other way in a deal, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that at this point because I don't know what's going on with him. But, you just talked about they need to go get another defenseman, someone who can take the puck and rush up into the O zone and make a dynamic offensive play. It's that's supposed to be him. That is his job. And it has not happened at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think he's having a tough regular season. It just looks like he's lost his step. But to me, when I think about Morgan Rielly, the first thing that always comes to mind is just his sheer ability to just skate. He's always been a fantastic skater. And it's just, this season, it looks like he's just lost a bit of a step. I know. And I the point production. I don't really get too caught up on that because I never thought he was a point producer. I never put him in that category with Erik Karlsson in his prime or anything like that. And now that he's not on the power play anymore, BX hit on it last night. It's just, that's going to plummet his point total. But if he's changing the color of tape on his stick, so that's showing you that mentally he's struggling as well. If you're trying to find superstitious things to change about what you're doing on a day-to-day routine, clearly you're kind of in a mental funk as well. It's just, I don't know. It looks like he's just lost a step a little bit with his speed and his ability to make decisions. I don't really know what else to say other than that.
There's a few guys on this team, man, who are in an absolute funk mentally. The top of the list is Rielly, and right behind him, if not tied beside him, is Max Domi. Like, Max Domi's on the wing with Pontus and William Nylander, and I've been on here advocating, saying you got to put him with good players, and they ended up going with Bobby McMahon playing with Austin and Mitch, and part of me is like, you know what, why not give Domi a look there? But at the same time, it's like, no, he doesn't deserve it. Like, Bobby McMahon deserves that spot. Max Domi does not. Like, you're not just going to give the guy a top line winger role when you don't trust him to produce and be a difference maker. And like, what evidence has there been at all this year that he can do that? And it's unfortunate, because I do think the best version of Max is when he plays with elite players. But again, like, look what happened. Like, Nyes goes down. You take McMahon away from Nylander, and he's with Domi and Holmberg, and he's out there by himself.
Yeah, they'd have put up Nicky Robertson with them at the end of the game there, because I thought Nick actually had a half decent game in Ottawa. Max just, I feel like Max, his struggles are a little more self-inflicted than Morgan Rielly. I think Morgan Rielly just plays a really, I think when you're struggling defensively in the NHL playing defense, like I feel like it's just, you're getting forechecked, you're getting hit. I feel like it's more, you can get on a downhill spiral. It's a tough position to play in the league. There's a reason why every team's looking for a great defenseman, because I do think it's extremely challenging. But Max Domi is just, like, how many times does your coach or does this fan base have to tell you to shoot the puck when you have the ability to shoot the puck? And even last night, they played that little segment on the broadcast where they're all watching his goal against Pittsburgh, and everyone's like, I guarantee you Max is looking for a pass there. And he's like, yeah, I'm a pass first guy. I was definitely looking for a pass. And it's like, everyone is yelling at you on a daily basis, and the coach keeps telling you to shoot first, shoot first, shoot first. I think Max is just playing the wrong game. It's just like, you need to fix the way you are playing. You are not this player. I think he thinks of himself in a certain way, and he's just not that guy. Like,
he thinks he's like Marner. He thinks he's a Marner type player.
He thinks he's like a worse version of Mitch Marner, and it's just like, you're not that guy. You're not that guy. Like, we appreciate when you're. Sometimes he takes a dumb penalty, whatever. That's fine, but it's just, I think he's just playing the wrong style of game, and he thinks he's a guy he's not, and he just needs to go back to the drawing board and just kind of rethink about what he needs to do to contribute in this lineup, because what he's been doing is just not working. And I know he's not a centerman. That's not where he needs to be. He's on the wing now. I think the team recognizes that. I mean, I think to get the best version of him, he needs to be on the wing, but I just think he's playing the wrong game.
And it's kind of like, you've talked about this a lot, about how, like, if you're not having success in this lineup and you want more ice time, you need to adjust your game. And he's on the second line sort of out of necessity because of the injuries. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, change your game, man. Like he's getting in Brady Tkachuk's face. It's like, yeah, more of that. Like, you be an agitator. Be a guy who's pissing the other team off. Don't take dumb penalties in bad moments. It's going to cost your team. But yeah, make that adjustment. Stop worrying about being a Mitch Marner clone. You're right. You're not a Mitch Marner clone. Go out there and get under somebody's skin. Accept that as your role.
Yeah, like Hockey Night in Canada was doing their best to put together this like cute segment of like, look at this beauty pass by Nyes and Domi goes, and it's just like, it just blew up in his face. I'm watching it, and everyone's like, yeah, he's looking to pass there. He's got a wide open net. It's like this. How many times has Berube told you this year that you need to shoot the puck when you have an opportunity? And he's trying to be a pass first guy. It's like that mentality makes no sense to me if you're a professional hockey player, being a pass first guy. Like, it's just, I understand that some dudes just think that's what got them there, and they stick to their guns. But if you have a wide open opportunity to fire the puck on net and you're a skilled player, I don't understand why you're not taking that opportunity. It's mind boggling. I don't understand.
So I'm going to go a little off the board here, but I wanted your opinion on this, because we literally haven't talked about this really. Did the return for Mikko Rantanen sort of change the way that we should perceive Mitch Marner? Now, I know they're not going to they're not going to trade Mitch Marner, but I kind of saw the return that Colorado got, and I know Chicago was involved in it too, and I was kind of like, that's not for a guy of Rantanen's caliber. Like Carolina, the whole thing with them is they don't have a superstar. They have one now. And I just kind of look at that and I go, just trying to see this through a Mitch Marner lens. So I guess, what are your thoughts on the trade and what Colorado got back for him?
Yeah, I might be a little all over the place with this response. I'll try to keep my head focused with a focused response here. But I think I love the way Colorado approached moving on from him in a way. I know it's you hear Treliving say this all the time. It's really tough to find elite talent in this league, and you can't really move off it. But they recognize that they have 3 really elite players, but they've made the comment that they're not a deep enough team. Like they've won. I mean, they won the cup, so that takes pressure off. Like if the Leafs won a cup, like I would put my hands up in the air and be like, well, okay, they're struggling, but at least they got something out of it. But yes. I like Colorado's approach where it's like, this guy is elite. We know he's elite, but we're too top heavy. And also, Elliot Friedman made that interesting comment in intermission yesterday where the salary cap might be going up, but teams might have like an internal cap where it's like, we're not going to, just because it's going up, we're not going to like max ourselves out. So I think just to interject there, I also think that teams, and we've talked about this with Matthews, especially with Marner's next deal. I think teams are like, Colorado's like, no one makes more than Nate McKinnon in this locker room. So I think that is kind of a message that people want to send. And I think with the Leafs, it's sort of a similar situation with Matthews, where it's like, he's the captain, he's making 13.25. No one is making more than him or is making his salary. You like, it starts with him and it trickles down. And let me be very like, this is extremely obvious to me. If you're a team that is kind of being forced into paying guys that type of money, multiple guys that type of money, you don't have to look any further than the Toronto Maple Leafs for an example that it does not work. Yeah. It does not work unless you have the most special group of dudes ever. And maybe they did because they already won a cup, but the Toronto Maple Leafs are the perfect example of when you start just going up and up and up and up and up with these numbers, you're not deep enough and you're not good enough. And look what happens. You can't get far enough in this league. So I like their mentality of, this guy is an elite player, but we don't want to sign him to that number. And we just got to move on and get somebody. Now the return's kind of a different story. Like Natchez is a guy who's always had a ton of talent, but has always kind of fallen short. This has been the first year where he's actually kind of broken out, been a really good player. So, I mean, everyone always says you won't win the deal when you trade an elite player. And maybe that's true because it's hard to get back the return that you're giving up. Like Rantanen's a top 5 point getter in this league. And so
he's a direct comparable to Marner, man. Like he and Marner, like he's a direct, like if you're the Leafs and you're looking at players that you can compare Marner to across the league, he's on that list.
Yeah. If you look at the Colorado Avalanche, they're not better from this trade. Yeah. And I think when people say when you trade an elite player, you won't win the deal, there's truth to that. But I'm also looking at the other way where they had to make a sacrifice to really, they have a vision in their head of what they want to do, and paying that guy a ton of money and handcuffing themselves to filling out the rest of the roster was something they didn't want to do. So I do respect the tough decision they had to make, because they're a good team, but they're not first in the Pacific, or no. I mean in the Central. So they had to make a tough decision. So I do respect that in a way. But yeah, the return wasn't worth it. But I mean, you got to make hard decisions in this league.
So basically your take is you respect the stones that the Avalanche had to look at the situation and be like, we can't be top heavy. We need to spread the wealth out a little bit more. And I think this kind of ties into the conversation we were having earlier about the Leafs needing better pieces up the middle and on the back end. And if you're going to pay Mitch Marner $12-something million, that's going to make it a lot harder to achieve that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the tough decisions that this organization did not make. That basically, that's what I respect about it. I don't know if it's the right decision or the wrong decision, but it was a really hard decision to look at one of your best players and go, sorry, bud, I just don't think this is the right thing. And I think that this team has not even gone anywhere near that territory. They've just went, you're an elite player. Here you go. Like, it's just,
you hit on it with the cup thing. Like, I think that's a very important point is they've won a cup. So they're kind of like, we can afford to do this because we have we're still feeling the cup win from a couple of years ago. Whereas the Leafs are petrified. The organization, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, whoever, Rogers, whoever, is petrified to move off of Mitch Marner because that might mean that they take a step backwards. And you can sit and say everything that we're talking about you need to change the chemistry, like we need to spread the wealth, all that stuff. But there's a risk in moving off a player like Marner that you do, like, look at them this year. Like, if they lose in the first round this year, you think that this team is not paying Mitch Marner and bringing him back? Absolutely they are. They're going to look at it and say, we were first in the Atlantic pretty much all season, and it just didn't go our way again. And we believe that if we keep this group together, they're going to break through, they're going to break through, they're going to break through. And the difference between them and Colorado is Colorado's like, we've got a Stanley Cup. So we've got goodwill with the fans that we can actually do this and say, we're going to move off Rantanen and we're going to try and spread the wealth out going forward and see if we can make our team more balanced.
Yeah, I love it. And you know what? They have two of, I'd arguably say that Nate McKinnon's the best player in the NHL when he's at his best. And I think Cale Makar is the best defenseman in the NHL when he's at his best. So they're looking at their two top elite guys and go, like, we're paying you and we trust you to right the ship here. And it might take us a little bit to get the right pieces around you, but it's just, I'm just jealous of that, like, kind of mentality of like, we're going to make a tough decision and try to make our team better, because you're right. They are 100% going to pay Mitch Marner 12 something million this offseason. Like, it's just, even win or lose in the playoffs, it's going to happen. And it's just, when hopefully that salary cap keeps going up and up and up, because the Leafs are not going to be one of those teams that has an internal cap. They are going to continue to spend to the last penny of that salary cap number. And hopefully that will give them more flexibility with Tavares getting a little less money. But I just, the return wasn't great, but I like the stones of the organization.
Yep. And then for Chicago just swoops in and helps make the money work and sends Taylor Hall, who's off to another team. Taylor Hall, just like the most. What number is this? I don't even know. Like 5 or 6. If you're him though, you got to be pretty jacked. Like, you were on the Blackhawks, who are awful, and you're going to a team that is a surefire lock to make the playoffs. And if they can get quality goaltending, could probably do some damage in the playoffs.
And if you look at it from Carolina's perspective as well, it's just like they're at the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's like, we have a really good team here, but maybe we need to pay one elite guy to make sure that we have that consistent offense that we've been missing in the playoffs. So I like it from there too. I like how they're going all in. I think they have a really good team. They've been in the top of that division for years now. I mean, you're right. They don't have any goaltending. That's going to be a problem, but I like it from their end too. It's a bold move. I think it's a great trade for the league, especially this far out from the deadline. I love it. I think this is great for the league, and I think it's a good trade for it's not necessarily a good trade for both teams, but you can understand the perspective of both organizations and why they went out and did this.
100%. All right, buddy, looking ahead to the week coming up, we're only going to have 2 games to talk about when we reconvene next Sunday. They've got the Minnesota Wild, good team, and on Wednesday, and then next Saturday, baby, the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton.
Yep. West Coast swing.
Do you think that there could potentially be a Ryan Reeves, Darnell Nurse situation?
I don't know.
If I'm Darnell Nurse, I want no part of that fight personally.
I mean, let's see how let's take the temperature of the game. Maybe it depends on what happens with I don't know what's going on in the game, but I don't. The Leafs Oilers is never really that dirty of a matchup. It's not like when the Leafs play the Jets or another team like that. So I don't know.
100%. All right, we're going to get out of here. I just want to highlight one more time. We've got the Four Nations face-off coming up in a couple of weeks. Ryan and I will be doing post-game review shows for every Team Canada game. So if you'd like to join us for those, hit that like and subscribe button below. Please do the same if you're listening to the audio version.
Spread the word. Tell your friends.
We really appreciate it. We will see you guys next Sunday.